Last night, I had woken up through the middle of the night at least twice and got some downloads that actually really blew my mind, related to the Bible. I know that words are spells, but I've never considered myself someone who's ever practiced magic, but especially not black magic. Before I went to bed, I was listening to something that came on my feed, which I don't always, but it was someone I had not listened to before. It was a tarot reader, and it was really an unusual message, which I'll probably post to my channel sometime as a reference. And of course, not everything on a tarot message is meant for everybody, but it was really odd, and she was kind of referring to that you're someone who opens up portals very easily, and that you have been to hell, and all of this is spiritual. And so I actually agreed with that. But then she said that something about because of the black magic you kept practicing, and that your guides had tried to tell you not to, but you just wouldn't listen. And so then at that point I'm like, no, I've never practiced black magic. That can't be. But there were other things that she was saying that really resonated, so I kept listening. So when I went to bed and then I ended up waking up through the night, I got some really interesting downloads that surprised me, and I'm gonna share them. So Bible, bi, which means two, and then there's a different kind of two. So if you want to say two, the number TWO, or two, TO. So at first I thought, okay, two, and then bull. So two bull. And I was thinking bull meaning more like something that's like shit, like that's a bunch of bull. And so I was thinking two, almost like two ways to bull, and then I thought of heaven and hell. But what really surprised me was when I thought about the other word too, TO, and then the word bull, but instead of meaning like worthless or shit, thinking about the animal, and right away I had this epiphany, like immediately, of Moloch, which is in the Bible, where in the Old Testament they're sacrificing children to Moloch, and it's, if you want to say it's the golden calf. When the golden calf was made, it's a calf or a bull. So then the word Moloch, more, like think about money, more, and then lock, just spelled differently. Okay, and then I started thinking about other things in the Bible. So my mind went to the word Romans. And I'm like, some of these things that I thought about, I'm like, there isn't going to be one for this one. And there, Romans, row. And then I thought of row, like rowing your boat. So ROW, the act of moving through waters. And waters immediately made me think of, that's our emotions. So the act of moving through waters. And then man, so Romans, mans. So that's pretty self-explanatory. So the act of moving through waters or emotions of man. And then revelation, rev, like revving up a car, to stir or to start up. Like revelation, so just the word lay. I thought of LAY, and then what comes from within, example, an egg. Of course, thinking with like a chicken and an egg, but even with human eggs. But lay, what comes from within. And then shun, the end part of Revelation, just spelt differently. Shun, like to avoid, like the way people will shun a person if they don't fit in their group. Okay, so revelation, so start up or stir, what comes from within, to avoid. So all of this made me think of energy harvesting. The Moloch, of course, right away had me thinking of what I know these groups are doing, which is actually killing. It's not just children, but it includes children, and drinking blood and offering the children, just like my ex offered our son Ethan, and I believe our son Reuben, as some kind of offering so that he could keep me under like a continual hex. And okay, so then moving on, so all of this would apply to like Christianity and even Judaism, but the word Mormon, which of course wouldn't apply to all Christians, but I have been Mormon in the past, and I believe my family, even my husband, who would have never claimed to have any background in that. I feel like these secret societies are either so interrelated that it just doesn't really matter, or he actually was or is Mormon, but he just never told me. It's one or the other. But anyway, the word Mormon, so more, just adding an E, more, like self-explanatory, and then mun, and I would thought of money. So then it would be the Book of More Money, and I thought immediately via energy harvesting. So as I continue to think about these things, the word Psalms, so I was like, okay, alms. So right away I'm like, okay, alms, that's like money or equivalent, something of value that's given. You know, like in the Old Testament, people gave alms, like they gave, it's almost like the way people would tithe nowadays, but you know, they gave something to show, or you give a donation to a charity or something, right? Giving alms. I don't think it has to be money. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, but what about the, you know, it's really just a s. There's no p sound, so s. So I started saying the s slowly, and I found myself going s, and then I'm like, okay, it's the sound a snake makes. And then that was just a little eerie because of obviously the quote devil in the Bible coming like supposedly to Eve in the form of a snake, and just so money or equivalent given. And then I don't know if it would be from the snake or to the snake. I'm not sure. Started thinking about how some of the Psalms are so beautiful and can really be encouraging. And honestly, people who would have nothing to do with the rest of the Bible might embrace something like the Psalms because it's poetic, and you know, some are just so very beautiful, like I said. So moving on, the word God. So right away, just the G, thinking of G, just the letter, symbolizing God, like on the secret society, like you know, in their emblems and stuff, you will see a G, like with the compass, you know. So then OD, the other last part of the word God, I just thought odd, so like ODD, odd. So then I'm like, okay, put it together, geod. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like one of those things that's like a piece, you know, a piece of the earth. And so I had to look that up. So I have two definitions for geod. This is just me Googling it, but geological secondary formation within sedimentary and volcanic rocks. And then the other definition I actually liked better because it was more thorough. A hollow spherical rock with a dull exterior that hides a beautiful interior cavity lined with crystals formed over time as mineral-rich water, and then once again I thought of emotions, as mineral-rich water seeps into bubbles or pockets, emphasis mine, in volcanic or sedimentary rock, causing crystals like quartz, amethyst, or calcite to grow inward. So I have to just say that the one that came first was the Bible, and as many other words like police would come to mind. So po, meaning poor, and leasing the poor, or, like kind of like taking the poor for all they've got. That kind of, they're probably not going to come to mind right now, but there are a lot of words that I would know that, like, they're basically disclosing very subtly, and it's right there in your face if you have eyes to see. But I never had, I guess, even thought of, Bible. You just say Bible and you don't think. And then I even thought, oh my gosh, like, how do you not recognize the word Bible has the word bull in it by sound, phonetically? And to bull, it's like to bull, whether it's heaven and hell or bull, or at least the way they're expounded on how to get there and how to avoid. Because I say I've gone to hell, but it wasn't, it wasn't this place burning up. It wasn't a literal, but it was a literal hell, but it was, being entrapped in cycles that just were so negative and not being able to get out. The tarot message, some of the things she said that really did resonate before I had these epiphanies was kind of about, I do know now that I know that I am so spiritual, like that I am like maybe more of a quote natural witch, like that I do things without realizing that are spiritual, maybe effortlessly, like alchemy. My poetry has been a major way that I've healed, and that is alchemy. That's being able to take all this negative energy that these people are like actually paying for voodoo practitioners to, cast hexes and spells and all this stuff. And since my awakening, and even progressingly so, I've been able to I'm not even affected by it. And I think a lot of it's through my poetry. I have learned to alchemize the negative into something positive by like processing the feelings, the pain. And I don't think that I even know that I'm being hit nowadays because I've healed so much. I don't even know. I feel like they probably are, but it's not affecting me. I don't know what I think about jihad and the word God. I do know that each of us has the ability. I think each, maybe some don't, but I would say we have the ability to access our inner God. And I do know the better that I have felt and come away from like dogmatic Christianity to where then I finally felt comfortable saying, no, I'm no longer a Christian because I don't believe the Bible. The less and less I ever prayed, and my prayers had kind of already transformed into like just self-talk, like, how are you? Checking in with myself. Are you okay? Like, this is really hard, but and now I would say, I guess I just don't call it praying, but I do talk to my spirit guides. So you could call it praying if you wanted, but what they're doing in the Bible as far as child sacrifice is what's actually happening in modern time, and probably all throughout time of Christianity and Judaism, is child sacrifice, like literal, and sex with the dead. Like it's it's pedophilia, it's cannibalism, it's necromancy, it's all of it. So I believe the Bible is a book of the elites, and just like in movies or cartoons, and it's all over, they kind of play in our face, and I remember watching Men in Black years ago, and I wasn't a Christian yet, so I certainly wasn't into like, I certainly hadn't had like an awakening, but I wasn't a Christian or anything, and I think I was a teenager. I might have been, I have to think about that, but whatever, however old I was, maybe I was an early adult. when I watched that movie, actually, maybe I was a Christian. Okay, I had to have been, because I knew the earth was flat. Okay, so, I don't know. In the movie, my point is, in the movie, Will Smith and the other guy, I can't remember, I don't know their names. The white guy, I think, is explaining to the Will Smith character, it's something they'll never know. Talking about like all of humanity and what it was, and then it ends up being a big laughing scene. Everyone in the audience laughed hysterically. Is that the earth is flat. And I remember sitting there as everyone else laughed, and I'm like, oh my god, they're like playing in our face. So, okay, I definitely had to have been a Christian, so excuse me with that last part. So they play in our face a lot, and so I don't mean to be long-winded, but some of these things make sense. If the Bible is actually like accessing the use of black magic to its, maybe not just to its readers, but maybe to someone like myself who was like so earnest about, okay, like this is like putting it on a pedestal that I believe it calls you to put it on, like this is the word of God. This is, this gets to veto even my own feelings, which was definitely an error, but that is the way that's what the Bible calls its followers to do. So I believe it's a book written by the elites spanning millennial, and each generation adding until it was compiled and completed. That's just what I believe. And I just, since these epiphanies through the middle of the night, I now would understand it to be a book of dark arts. And the way I accessed hell, as the tarot reader said accusingly, which I didn't agree with when she said it, but I do now, access these portals effortlessly and so repetitiously. Like I just kept going there. The way I accessed hell was very much in those times where my instinct or intuition said one thing and the Bible said another, and so then I would quote, push down or die to self, submit to the scripture because I believed it was truly the word of God the way it says it is. So when I think back to whether it was home churches, Mennonite, Baptist, not Mormon, but like anything that were the Christian churches, I was in non-denominational churches, where there's more like much more relaxed clothing and music styles, all kinds of churches, right? Through my Christian walk of 25 years. Maybe not everybody, but like the main core people, like the main people who are like members for a long time, and pastors, like I thought even the word reverend, for the what you think of rev with the revelation, like stirring up, I'm like, yep, that is kind of what a reverend does. They kind of stir you up every time they preach to try to, whether it's to tithe or whether it's to do this or don't do that. And so I'm like, I was one of few, at least, that were not, what I'm saying is the majority of people were cannibals, pedophiles, partaking in human sacrifice. And I wasn't and haven't ever. And I like to believe there were other people who also weren't. But this is what this stuff is really about. So, and the main benefit that these people are getting is to energy harvest. So whether they're literally drinking the blood and eating the flesh of some baby that they just killed before, after having sex with, whether it's babies or children of all ages or adults, which I believe they do all of it, or whether it's off of someone like myself who has been alive physically but was submitting to the point where, I mean, I was sick for over a decade. I was just struggling, and I had no idea of black magic. I had no idea that I was married to someone who was like a professional con artist and who was, casting hexes and spells on me to keep me like very, very oppressed. But all of it, I never thought of my spouse as, suave or anything like that. I never saw him the way that some narcs are painted out to like trick you. Like, I never saw him like that. And he was cloaked in my energy though. And so I just wanted to believe the best about him. And I saw little, what seemed like glimmers and hopes of that maybe he could, hopefully I thought he would hopefully come to the Lord or become a Christian. So some of these epiphanies are really, really just blew my mind, and I wanted to share them. Okay, and as far as Moloch, I didn't really explain what I was inferring from that would be kind of like they're locking in for themselves more, or to continue to be able to gain off of others, is what I thought that word meant.